I always believed my wife, Olivia, was the smartest person I had ever met. When we first met in college, her bright smile and quick wit pulled me in. I was shy, and she was confident. Back then, I was just an ambitious student who loved computers. She was studying business and said she wanted to help people grow their dreams. I felt lucky that she chose me. Everyone told me I had found a treasure. We married soon after graduation, and I worked day and night to build my tech company from scratch. Olivia encouraged me, at least, I believed she did. I never imagined she would become the person who almost destroyed everything I built. It all started as a small software idea in our cramped apartment. I wrote lines of code on my old laptop while Olivia studied contracts and talked about marketing strategies. We dreamed of success together. She often said, "When you make it big, don't forget me, your #1 fan." We laughed about living in a tiny space and eating cheap meals. We were sure that, one day, it would all be worth it. My company, Rapid Innovations, slowly grew from a simple idea to a bustling operation. We hired more people, got better offices, and finally took on major clients. Over time, I became so busy that I hardly noticed how Olivia had changed. She stopped talking about our shared dreams. Instead, she focused on fancy parties, meeting people with money, and wearing expensive clothes. She rarely asked about my day. She was more interested in forging connections with wealthy investors. I tried not to think too much about it. I told myself that she was just excited about our success and wanted to enjoy life. Still, a small voice inside me wondered if something else was going on. One evening, I came home from the office, feeling worn out. Olivia was sitting at the dining table, tapping her long nails on her phone. She did not even look up to greet me. I could feel the distance. It weighed heavy on my heart. I tried to ask if everything was okay, but she simply shrugged and complained about a new dress she wanted that was sold out. I put my hand on her shoulder, hoping to connect with her. But she brushed it off like I was a stranger. That night, I tossed and turned, thinking about where our love had gone. The next morning, I started noticing clues. Our bank statements showed money moving into accounts I did not recognize. I saw unusual calls on our phone bill that lasted for hours. At first, I tried to push away my doubts. I told myself she was just moving money to diversify investments. I reminded myself that we all have friends we talk to for a long time. Still, my gut feeling said that something was off. I decided to keep a close eye on these small signs. I thought I could find an explanation, or maybe fix our relationship somehow. Things continued to grow more suspicious. Olivia kept odd hours, often coming home after midnight. She claimed she was meeting potential partners for my company. But when I asked for details, she changed the subject or pretended to be too tired to talk. She would glance at her phone and hide it when I came close. I felt like my old friend had turned into a stranger. I tried to confront her, but she would say I was being dramatic and that I should trust her. I wanted to trust her, but I also needed the truth. One afternoon, my lawyer and close friend, Marcus, dropped by the office. He had a concerned look on his face. Marcus was the type of person who always tried to find logical explanations, but he could not hide his worry. He said, "I have been reviewing some records and noticed that Olivia is moving your shares around. She is meeting with someone named Trevor Dixon. They have arranged some transfers that do not look good for you." My heart pounded in my chest. Marcus handed me a stack of papers, showing details I could barely read without my hands shaking. I felt betrayed, hurt, and angry. I wanted to march home and demand answers. But Marcus stopped me. He said, "You have to stay calm. If you confront her now without a plan, she might hide more evidence." I could not believe my wife would do something like this. But the papers did not lie. She was working with Trevor, someone I had never heard of. They were selling a large portion of my shares behind my back, forging my signature, and taking the money for themselves. I felt like my whole world was about to crumble. I spent that night pacing the living room floor. Olivia came home late and went straight to bed. She did not say a word. I could not sleep. My mind replayed every moment we had shared, every promise we had made. How did we get here? When did greed replace our love? I vowed that I would find a way to protect my life's work. This was more than just money. It was my dream, my future, and the future of my employees who depended on the company's success. Marcus and I started gathering evidence. We looked at emails, phone records, financial transactions, and even security footage from the office. The more we uncovered, the clearer it became that Olivia and Trevor had planned this for months. They wanted to wait until I was too busy to notice. Then, they would transfer my company shares to Trevor, who would sell them to outside investors, leaving me with almost nothing. They hoped I would be so stressed that I would not see the betrayal until it was too late. I felt a storm of emotions. But I realized anger alone would not solve this. I had to be smart. So, I told Marcus, we will let them think they are winning. Let's not scare them off. We will watch silently until the right moment. Marcus agreed. Our plan was risky. We had to allow the forged documents to go through so we could gather clear evidence of their wrongdoing. We needed solid proof for court. If we stopped them too soon, they could hide their trail and try a different tactic. In the weeks that followed, I pretended to know nothing. Olivia carried on with her secretive calls, and I acted like the busy CEO who never checked a single file. I made sure to stay kind, even complimenting her new clothes or her new perfume. I wanted her to believe she was fooling me completely. Some nights, it was hard to look at her without showing my hurt. But I swallowed my pain for the sake of my plan. Meanwhile, I also made quiet preparations. I set up protective measures for the company. I had extra insurance policies written, and I reorganized some departments. I transferred important patents into a separate legal entity under my name. I did not tell anyone, not even my closest friends, about these moves. Marcus helped me file everything in secret. If Olivia and Trevor thought they were stealing the entire company, they would be in for a big surprise later. I only had one goal, to expose them in front of a judge so that my company and employees would be safe. Finally, the day came when Olivia moved the last chunk of shares to Trevor. I could see the smug look on her face when she got home that evening. She spoke cheerily about a girlfriend's getaway. She said she would be gone for a while with her friends. She told me I should not worry about her phone being off because she needed a break from everything. I guessed she and Trevor were planning a private celebration somewhere expensive, believing they had already won. I played my part well, wishing her a good trip and telling her I would miss her. Once she was gone, I felt both relief and sadness. This woman had once been my best friend, my partner in building a life. But now, she was stealing from me. The next morning, Marcus called to confirm we had all the evidence. We finally filed the lawsuit, serving both Olivia and Trevor with legal papers. Because they had forged my signature on official documents, they faced serious charges. I wanted justice, but I also dreaded the day I would face her in court. The waiting period before the trial felt like an eternity. I kept running the company, acting as if nothing was wrong. Many people noticed that Olivia was missing. I only said she was on vacation. I did not want rumors or drama to harm the business. At night, I would sometimes stare at old photos of us in college, wondering if this outcome was my fault. Had my success pushed her away? Had I not given her enough attention? Questions swirled in my head, but I knew I had to stay strong. On the morning of the court date, I put on my best suit. My heart pounded like a drum in my chest. In the mirror, I saw a man with tired eyes but a determined spirit. When I reached the courthouse, I saw Olivia step out of a sleek black car. Trevor followed, holding her hand. I noticed the expensive jewelry around her neck and wrists. She looked confident, almost smug. As I walked past them, Olivia smirked and said, "I hope you are ready to lose everything." I did not respond. Instead, I looked her in the eye for a long moment, then turned away. The court session began. Our lawyers presented piles of documents, emails, and statements. Marcus spoke calmly and showed how each transfer was forged. He explained how the shares were moved into Trevor's name without my knowledge. On the other side, Trevor's lawyer tried to argue that I had signed the documents willingly. But Marcus pointed out the differences in the signature and the digital proofs of identity. The tension was thick in the air. Olivia kept flipping through papers, whispering to Trevor, and glaring at me from time to time. During a break, I sat by myself in the hallway. I could hear Olivia scolding Trevor, blaming him for poor planning. She said, "I told you we should have taken the money and left the country faster." I felt my stomach churn. It was painful to hear her speak like that. A small part of me wanted her to realize her mistake, apologize, and say we could fix our marriage. But I knew that dream was gone. She had shown her true self, greedy and cold. When we returned to the courtroom, Marcus presented our biggest piece of evidence, private emails between Olivia and Trevor that clearly showed their plan. They had never expected me to get access to those messages. In them, they talked about forging papers, meeting shady buyers, and how they would leave him with nothing. My eyes welled up with tears. Marcus read the emails out loud for everyone to hear. I felt a lump in my throat as the courtroom fell silent. The judge looked sternly at Olivia and Trevor. He asked them to explain these emails. Their lawyer stumbled, trying to say it was all taken out of context. But the judge had seen enough. He asked me to confirm if I had indeed written any of those messages. I said, "No, Your Honor, I never wrote or agreed to these deals." The judge nodded. Then he turned to Olivia, waiting for her to speak. She remained silent, her head low. Trevor looked furious, flipping through pages, as if trying to find something to save them. Then came the final blow. Marcus showed another set of documents proving that the shares my wife sold were not actually valid to be sold. I had restructured the shares months before. Many of them were restricted, meaning no one could sell them without my written consent. Since Olivia never had that consent, her sale was void. In addition, we showed that the essential patents and intellectual property belonged to a separate entity in my name alone, protected from any unauthorized deals. All this meant that their entire plan was worthless. Olivia's face turned pale. Trevor's mouth hung open. The judge asked them if they had anything to say. Trevor stood up, yelling that this was unfair, that I had tricked them. I just stayed quiet, watching them unravel. The judge ordered them to calm down. He then explained that forging signatures, committing fraud, and attempting to sell restricted shares were serious crimes. With a firm voice, the judge said, "This court finds Olivia Wright and Trevor Dixon guilty of fraud. The sale of the company shares is invalid, and all assets must be returned to Mr. Wright." I cannot fully explain the wave of relief that swept over me. Olivia gasped, stumbling back into her seat. Trevor started shouting at his lawyer, pointing fingers and blaming everyone but himself. People in the courtroom watched the chaos in shock. Some even whispered about how brazen their crime was. I felt my shoulders relax for the first time in weeks. Justice was served. After the decision, I stepped outside the courtroom. Reporters were there, shouting questions and snapping photos. I ignored them and walked to my car. I saw Olivia run after me, tears streaming down her face. She grabbed my arm, pleading, "Please, I made a mistake. Let's talk this through. You can't leave me like this." My heart broke a little. But I remembered the emails, the laughter, and the forged papers. I pulled my arm away. "I'm sorry," I said quietly, "but this is over." Then I got into my car and drove away, leaving her sobbing on the courthouse steps. The next few days were a whirlwind. The media picked up the story, highlighting the betrayal and the court victory. People expressed shock that a wife would go so far against her husband. I tried to keep my employees calm, making sure everyone understood that the company was safe. My phone did not stop buzzing. Some people called to ask if I was okay. Others wanted to spread gossip. I avoided most calls, needing time to heal. Marcus came by my office and offered a small smile. "You did the right thing," he said. "I'm proud you stayed strong. Now you can move on." I nodded, feeling a bittersweet mix of relief and sadness. I knew I still loved the memory of who Olivia once was, but I also understood that person no longer existed. The reality was that she had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I spent a few weeks focusing on my mental health. I took time off from work to reflect, travel a bit, and remind myself that life can be beautiful even after betrayal. I visited an old lake where Olivia and I had once talked about the future. Standing by the water, I felt a sense of closure. The life we had planned together was gone, but a new chapter was opening for me. When I returned to work, my employees greeted me with applause. They had seen the news. They were relieved that the company was still strong and that I had protected them. I felt a new sense of purpose. This was not just about me anymore. It was about the people who believed in my vision, who counted on me to lead them through tough times. I promised myself I would do better, be more careful about who I trusted, and pay attention to warning signs in the future. Meanwhile, Olivia faced her own troubles. She lost most of her social circle. People did not want to be associated with someone who committed fraud. I heard rumors that Trevor tried to vanish to another country to avoid further charges. Rumor had it that he found no place to hide because every investor he approached knew about his scandal. The two of them had no one left to run to. As for me, I felt no joy in their suffering. I simply hoped they learned a lesson. One day, as I was leaving the office, I saw a figure waiting by my car. It was Olivia. She looked nothing like the elegant woman I once knew. Her hair was messy, and she looked like she had not slept in days. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. "Please," she whispered. "I need your help. I have nothing." My heart pounded. I wanted to feel pity, but I also remembered every lie she had told. I stood there, taking a deep breath. I recalled the court, the forged signatures, and the smug smile on her face when she thought she had won. I chose my words carefully. "Olivia," I said, "I'm sorry for what you're going through. But my help ended the day you plotted against me. I hope you find a new path. I wish you no harm, but I can't be your rescue anymore." She tried to grab my hand, but I gently pulled away. Her eyes filled with tears, and she sank to her knees, crying. It was a sad scene, but I felt no urge to comfort her. I had given all the understanding and trust one could. She had shattered it. In the months that followed, life slowly returned to normal. My lawyer finalized the divorce, and we divided assets according to the law. Since Olivia had tried to steal from me, she was left with very little once everything was settled. I felt relief, knowing that chapter was finally behind me. I devoted myself to rapid innovations, steering it to new heights. The lesson I learned was painful but clear: trust needs to be earned and protected. The press moved on to other scandals, and soon, fewer people asked me about the court case. Some folks called me lucky for escaping such a trap. Others said I was strong or cunning to have a plan. I felt neither. I just knew I had been forced into a corner and had to fight for my dream. In the quiet moments, I still wondered if Olivia had ever truly loved me or if she always craved wealth over real connection. One afternoon, Marcus sat with me in the company lounge. We sipped coffee, talking about new projects. I thanked him for standing by me through the hardest time of my life. He shrugged and said, "That's what friends do. Plus, I enjoy a good puzzle, and your wife's scheme was quite a puzzle to crack." We both laughed. It felt good to laugh again, free from the weight of betrayal. Over time, the business grew even more. We launched a new product that changed the game in our field. I hired more staff, making sure I chose people with both talent and integrity. I had learned that brilliance meant nothing without honesty and loyalty. The board of directors praised me for staying calm under pressure. But deep down, I knew that I had come close to losing it all. I made it a habit to walk through the office and greet everyone by name. I spent more time listening to their ideas and concerns. After what happened with Olivia, I wanted to make sure I valued every person who contributed to the company. I also started volunteering with local schools, teaching kids about technology. It felt rewarding to give back and see young minds light up with wonder. Sometimes, people asked me if I would ever trust anyone with my heart again. I always smiled and said, someday, maybe. I was not ready to jump back into marriage or even serious dating. The wounds were still healing. But I believe that not everyone is like Olivia. There had to be good people out there who believed in real partnership. I just needed time to find them, and I was in no hurry. Meanwhile, Olivia's name popped up in the news now and then. She got into minor trouble with the law, mostly for unpaid debts or trying to skip out on contracts. Each story made me realize how far she had fallen. A part of me felt sadness, remembering the bright-eyed girl who once studied business to help others. But she had taken a darker path, and I could not save her from herself. One evening, I found an old photo album. It held pictures of me and Olivia from our college days. I flipped through each page, pausing at the pictures of us laughing at silly jokes or posing with friends. I saw images of our wedding day when we both beamed with hope. I closed the album and placed it in a box, sealing away those memories. I did not want to burn them or throw them out, but I also did not want to see them daily. They were a part of my past, a story that taught me valuable lessons. I kept building my life, one day at a time. The company flourished, my friendships grew stronger, and my own self-confidence returned. People often told me, "You must be proud of how far you've come." And I was. But more than pride, I felt grateful. I was grateful for the people who stood by me, for the second chance to keep my dream alive, and for the wake-up call that taught me to protect what matters. Despite the pain, I refused to let bitterness take root in my heart. Over time, new opportunities to expand rapid innovations appeared. We considered opening an office overseas. I led negotiations with foreign investors, always double-checking contracts and documents with fresh caution. Marcus joked, "You are now the most careful man on earth." I laughed, knowing he was right. After living through such a massive betrayal, I would never again sign a document without reading every word. One day, I received an unexpected letter. It was from Olivia, postmarked from a small town in another state. She wrote a long apology, saying she regretted everything, that she had let greed take over her heart. She asked for my forgiveness, not because she expected anything in return, but because she claimed she wanted to move forward. I stared at the letter for a while, processing her words. I decided to write back a short note, "I forgive you. I hope you find peace." I sealed it in an envelope and mailed it the next day. Forgiveness did not mean I wanted her back in my life. I had simply let go of my anger. I knew holding on to bitterness would only hurt me. By forgiving her, I was finally free. I no longer woke up with anger in my chest or fell asleep with questions circling my mind. I could breathe again, focusing on the future instead of the past. Looking back, it was a huge journey from betrayal to victory in court. The day the judge declared the shares were invalid and returned them to me felt like a moment of triumph, but it also carried a heavy sadness. I realized how fragile trust can be. I realized that love, when mixed with greed, could twist into something ugly. Yet, I survived and came out stronger. I rebuilt not only my company but also my sense of self. Life moved on, bright and full of promise. I invested in research labs, created partnerships with universities, and helped small startups that reminded me of my younger self. Each time I assisted a budding entrepreneur, I remembered how far I had come and how important it was to have people you can truly rely on. My story, once filled with heartbreak, now became a source of motivation for others who felt betrayed and discouraged. Sometimes, new acquaintances would ask, "Is it true your wife sold your shares and you took them back in court?" I would nod, a faint smile on my lips. Then they would ask, "How did you manage to keep going?" I answered honestly, "I believed in what I built." I refused to let betrayal define me. I kept hope alive, and I had good friends by my side. my story became a reminder that one can lose almost everything yet still find a way to rebuild. Years later, Marcus and I sat in a fancy restaurant, celebrating the 10-year anniversary of Rapid Innovations. We clinked glasses of sparkling water, taking a moment to appreciate how far we had come. The company was now one of the top players in the tech industry. I was no longer just a hopeful college graduate with big dreams, I was a seasoned entrepreneur with battle scars to prove it. Marcus teased me, saying, "Who would have thought that heartbreak could lead to such an empire?" I laughed and shook my head. Life, indeed, can be very strange. As I finished my meal, I felt a sense of peace. My journey was not just about winning in court or stopping a terrible betrayal. It was about finding strength within myself, discovering who my real friends were, and learning how to forgive without letting anyone walk all over me again. That sense of wholeness felt better than any court victory or bank balance. It was true freedom. And so, if you ever come across a story about a man whose wife secretly sold his company shares, only for him to smile in court and win it all back, know this: it is more than just a tale of revenge. It is a story of healing and resilience. It is a reminder that even when the person closest to you breaks your trust, you can find a way to rise above the ashes. You can choose not to become hateful, and instead become wiser, stronger, and ready to open your heart again when the time is right. I moved forward with my life, forging new friendships and even dating again. But I took things slowly, ensuring I knew someone's character before investing my emotions. Every now and then, I felt a little guarded, remembering the pain from my past. Yet each time, I reminded myself that not everyone is out to betray you. You just have to be careful, trust your instincts, and stay true to what you hold dear. Looking back on that dramatic day in court, I recall the satisfaction I felt when I saw the judge hand down the verdict. More than the victory, I remember the calm inside me, the knowledge that justice had been served. My wife, or ex-wife now, had looked stunned, tears falling as she realized that her plans were dashed. Trevor, the so-called lover, stood there speechless, unable to comprehend how their clever scheme had unraveled. I left with my head high, feeling both sadness and relief. In the end, I learned that success is about more than money or big deals. It is about staying true to your values, holding on to your integrity, and never letting greed make you forget who you are. I also learned that sometimes, the hardest battles we face come from the people we trust the most. When you find yourself in that situation, you have to remain steady, gather proof, and let the truth speak for itself. No amount of lies can hold up against genuine facts in the light of day. So, that is my story. I hope it shows that even in the darkest storms, you can keep your eyes on the horizon. Betrayal can feel like the end, but it can also be the beginning of a journey where you discover your inner strength. While I would never wish such pain on anyone, I am grateful for the lessons I learned. I became more cautious, more thoughtful, and ultimately more compassionate. Life is too short to live in anger or regret. When people hurt you, find a way to move forward with dignity. Let the truth guide you. Let the law protect you. Then, focus on building the life you deserve. And if someone ever tries to steal what is rightfully yours, remember, do not act in haste. Gather your wits, your evidence, and your courage. Let them believe they have the upper hand if it gives you time to prepare. Then stand tall and let justice do its work. You might just walk away smiling, knowing that in the end, goodness can triumph over deception. That, I believe, is the real victory we all seek, both in the courtroom and in our hearts.